Islam, speaking of Islam,
Yeah.
isn't it kind of crazy that John Anik and I did like a post-fight reaction
Hmm.
for ESPN, and we led with Dustin Poirier. It
Yep.
seems like a lot of the stories coming out of last weekend are led with Dustin Poirier.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a little bit? Do you think it's a little unfair to Islam that his performance is kind of lost because so much is being made of how well Dustin Poirier did when the only reason it's such a big deal of how well Dustin Poirier did is because Islam is expected to dominate in such a fashion. Is it unfair to Islam?
Um, yeah, but you know what? The other thing I would say there is people love Dustin Poirier. He is just a
Yeah, he
very
is.
lovable guy. And Islam, for whatever reason, I think this is one of the things where like star power is interesting. He hasn't really caught on, not the way Khabib did, right? And they're kind of similar in the way they speak and their mannerisms. Um, but he hasn't caught on this
But to this,
quite the same way.
but to this, to that point, right?
Yeah.
Like I know when Islam and I are talking because metrics, right? Metrics
Yeah,
always tell you. And my
sure.
metrics internally, like my YouTube metrics, tell me that one of the most interactive people I
Hmm.
have is Islam Makhachev. I
Hmm.
mean, the
Interesting.
interview we did the other day is at 400,000
What about Dustin's? Is his
people,
bigger?
265,000, right?
Wow,
Which
that's
is still a
maybe
massive number.
they probably love Russia loves YouTube, right? They all subscribe to the
Probably,
Cormier channel.
probably. But Dustin
Yeah.
did really well too, right? It's star power. But
Yeah.
it's 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 just something. But
Yeah, it's
it's
interesting.
only because he's expected to be so dominant.
Yeah.
And was he not dominant on Saturday night to you?
Yeah, I thought he was, but I thought Dustin did a really good job in the fight. I think he stuffed a lot of takedowns. I thought he fought really hard. Probably more takedowns than he had in previous fights against good wrestlers that I can think of. So I thought he did a really good job there. I would not say Islam was dominant. I would say Dustin fought hard. You know, there was a few scorecards where I saw it was 2 rounds to 2 rounds. Going
Did
into the
you agree with
fifth.
that?
No, but I see where they're coming from. I think probably 3-1 was probably more fair
Mhm.
going into the fifth round. I understand 2-2. I would also understand if someone could argue 4-0, right? I
Mhm.
mean, that's the thing in fighting is some rounds are really close and then go either way. Um, so I thought Dustin did a great job. And I actually put this tweet out today. I thought like, man, Dustin has been a guy who's been near the title forever. I was thinking,
Times.
here's how long I was thinking back. I was at Eric Koch's corner and he had Dustin Koch triangle, Dustin Poirier triangled so tight in 2013. And Poirier is tough and he
He is.
freaking got out of it. And I was so pissed. And then he beat Eric. And I want to say, Eric had almost fought for a title. He actually had signed to fight for a title against Jose Aldo before that. And then Aldo got hurt in a motorcycle accident. So Eric never got the title fight. But Dustin Poirier has been damn near the top of his division for a
10 years,
decade
11
plus.
years.
It's
That's
crazy.
crazy. And
Yeah.
that is what I believe is a little bit lost on the respect that Dustin Poirier gets is how
Yeah.
long he's hung around the top. You know, he fought for the UFC championship against unbelievable people, honestly, right?
Yes.
Like he
Hmm.
lost to Khabib, Charles Oliveira, and Islam Makhachev.
Yes.
If he wasn't in this era of fighter, he probably would be the champ. But hell, he fought Conor McGregor for in 2013,
14. 14.
14. Yeah,
Yes.
14 is when him and Conor fought for the first time. So he's been fighting at the top of the sport for a really long time. Look, what stood out to me most on Saturday night was Dustin's ability to defend takedowns.
Hmm.
What stood out to me most was I felt after watching it, and for the first time, like I generally don't like to put much into, well, he fought this guy who fights very similar to this guy, so it's going to
Hmm.
benefit him.
Yeah.
But after watching that Saturday, I felt Dustin was better because he fought Khabib. Now, Ben,
That's fair. Yeah.
you and I both know that there are certain times where you expect a person to feel a certain way and you do everything you possibly can to replicate that. So I brought
Yep.
in tall guys because I was fighting John Jones. Brought in
Yep.
guys that hit hard because I was fighting Rumble Johnson. But the moment I was in there with the actual person, it was much different. Look, we practiced Cael Sanderson's moves constantly when I was at Oklahoma State. But then it was way different trying to stop him from actually doing the move. So you don't know the grappling strength of a Khabib Nurmagomedov until you feel it. Then you get Islam the second time, and you're like, okay, I've felt it before. It doesn't feel as dangerous or as hard to deal with this second time around. And I felt like Dustin Poirier was better for it. I also think what Dustin learned from that fight, and I think young wrestlers don't
jump the guillotine.
He did not jump the ghillie one time. He didn't jump the ghillie. I
was shocked.
Islam jumped the ghillie. Islam jumped the ghillie that turned into the darts. But
okay, sorry, go ahead. I cut you off there making a point. Oh, I was gonna say, well, Bo Nickel was on a podcast last week, and I agree with the sentiment. He said, well, Islam's wrestling is very good. He thought Khabib's wrestling was elite. And I agree with that sentiment. I think Islam is very good at wrestling. But he's really good at other things also, right? He's a good very good striker. And I thought Khabib had like uber elite, both takedowns and control. And just maybe a few notches above what Islam is in that category.
Could I tell you what I think the difference is, though? And I don't know if this was Dustin Poirier doing this on purpose, or I know what I did, and I know what Khabib did, and I know what Cain Velasquez did that made us take people down. We always wrestled around the shorts. You got to have something to grip. You got to have something that gives you friction. Islam seemed to be shooting at Dustin at his legs, so then they just kind of limp knee, and then you lose.
I hate going at the legs.
Didn't it seem like Islam wrestled beneath the shorts way too much? For me, it seemed like he wrestled beneath the shorts way too much, and that played into Dustin kind of creating space with his arms, and then he would just limp knee down and take his leg away. I think that was one gain in the game plan, knowing Khabib always wrestled him at his shorts, and so he never was able to get away from him.
Yeah, I mean, like in MMA, for example, in wrestling, I did a lot of single legs, and I think single legs best takedown. But in MMA, if I ever got a single, I would almost immediately go up to the body, right? Like seatbelt, body lock type thing. Because to your point, the single legs are relatively easy to defend. Plus, the other thing is generally you have to have two hands on their leg, and that means they have two hands free to hit you or elbow you with, which is not good, right? So if I ever got on a single leg and I didn't finish immediately, I would almost always come right up to the body. So yeah, Dustin Poirier did a good job of keeping him on the leg, and then obviously defending with the limp knee out of the leg. So yeah, he did a really good job there.
You know, that's one of the things for me. Like when I would always do that high crotch thing, it's always at the shorts. I would run the pipe at the shorts. Single leg at the shorts. When I would grab their leg, it was always like at the shorts. Now I'm not grabbing the shorts, but my arms. But
they're not sweaty.
Yes, they're not as sweaty, not as slippery as trying to grab a dude by his feet. Dustin did a good job of making sure Islam wrestled him beneath the knee, and Dustin was limp kneeing. But to give Islam credit, his striking looked fantastic, and I believe that he would have even been better in the striking had he not been hesitant. I spoke to him after the fight, and he told me, he goes, I could have fought better if I had more belief in my striking. He said he didn't feel as confident as he wanted to be out there on the feet.
Well, the other thing is with someone like Dustin Poirier who can hit hard and put you down, you don't necessarily want to be reckless, right? No. If you take maybe a little too many chances, that's when you can put. I mean, think about like his last guy, the French guy you yelled at me for saying his name wrong.
Benoit Saint-Denis.
Yeah, him. Like he got a little reckless, and Dustin put him on his ass. I mean, right? So. Against a good striker, I think you do want to have a certain amount of caution so that doesn't happen.
Yeah, for sure. And you can't be reckless in Dustin Poirier.